Atlanta Falcons, Atlanta Hawks. Who has to get it right?
This is the Atlanta Sports Party, part of Locked On Sports Atlanta on the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Oh, good people, we are officially welcoming you to the Atlanta Sports Party, your home for the best Atlanta sports talk and some fly graphics to bring you in its local insight you can't get anywhere but right here at Locked On. I'm your happy host who has an opening, Tenitra Batiste, and I'm here with Jarvis Davis and Maria Martin. The Atlanta Sports Party is part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. So on today's show, we'll give some kudos to great things happening, great things coming out of Flowery Branch. We'll talk about it in around the metro, and we'll talk about Maximus dealing again in the deep dive. But first, the day of reckoning has come to two teams in Atlanta Metro, which will make it pay dividends. So Jarvis, the Atlanta Falcons and the Atlanta Hawks are both facing franchise-defining off seasons and upcoming seasons, maybe for the first time in a long time or ever. Definitely at the same time. But when you look at these franchises, and we kind of talked about it a little bit ahead of the show, which one of them do you feel is likely to prove they've gotten the offseason right? And what would your definition be of what right looks like for that franchise?
To be honest with you, I have to go with the Atlanta Falcons because it's funny that we were just talking about this before we got started. Like I have the perception is that the Falcons have a plan. Terry Fontenot said, hey, we're trying to plan for now and in the future, which is what a general manager is supposed to do, right? Coaches more so, they have to focus on it now because those guys get rid of those guys just like yesterday's steak or yesterday's chicken that was left in the refrigerator. So, those guys get moved on so quickly. So I think right now it has to be the Falcons for me because they have a quarterback that can win for you right now. And Kirk Cousins, and they have the money to allot it for it. And then they also drafted Michael Penix. That gives me hope for the future, right? So that kind of is all about having a glimmer of hope. I believe in Raheem Morris and what he brings to the table. I believe in this offense, given its track record. Right now, Zach Robinson is in his first year of the offense as being an offensive coordinator. True enough, we got to see what that looks like. But I think overall, as far as the vision, the hope that I have and belief in the head coach, those things matter as far as being successful. On the other hand, the Hawks, Landry Fields, I don't know what they're trying to do. I have no clue. They've had every opportunity in the world to figure out where they are to talk about where they are as an organization, who's going to be here, who's not going to be here. They have every opportunity in the world. And to be honest with you, don't have to say who's not going to be here. Just say, hey, guy that we drafted and said is going to be the face of this franchise isn't going anywhere. And I mean, Trae Young, they haven't said that. They have had every opportunity since the season has ended to do it, and they just haven't done it. So my thoughts are, hey, there's a possibility that this dude might not be here. And then what's that going to bring? All doubt and fears because, hey, even though the Mavericks won that trade, I'm coming on to that side now. I feel like they've won that trade. You dang sure you're not gonna leave any doubt if you mess around and trade Trae Young, and I think that would be awful for this city. It'll be awful for Trae because you really haven't given him anything to work with since they went to the Eastern Conference Finals.
How about you, Maria? I mean, when you look at these franchises, can't believe we're talking about two of the four majors in this city being in a franchise defining situation at the same time. But here we are. And when you look at what this franchise has been able to do or not do, these franchises have been able to do or not do, which franchise do you think is actually going to be the one that gets it right this offseason?
I mean, I hope it's the Falcons based off of everything that we've seen them do so far, right? And, kind of like what Jarvis was saying, when you talk about Kirk Cousins, you bring in a quarterback. That's been the biggest complaint since they got rid of Matt Ryan is, well, who's the quarterback and why isn't it going right? So finally they get somebody who at the very least, You know what Kirk Cousins can give you. I tweeted out a video of him jogging around in Flowery Branch, and people had a lot of opinions. They were like, oh, he doesn't look so great. Well, remember, he's not fully healed yet. So the fact that he's even jogging is a good sign of where he's at in his recovery. He even said, he's 6.5 months into a 9-month recovery plan. So he's getting closer. I've got a lot of confidence that Kirk will be ready to go come week 1. And past that, Michael Penix Jr., you've got a lot of faith in him. I don't see him being a mess up pick. There's a lot of times where people do get the quarterback wrong in the first round. It's why a lot of these first round draft pick quarterbacks don't pan out in the league. It's very hard to get that right. I just always felt like Penix was going to be a guy who could be successful in the league no matter where he was picked. And he's showing you that in the early days in Flowery Branch. Granted, they're in shorts and they're not asking the quarterbacks to do a ton, but from what you've seen so far, you really like it. So, based on those moves, and they were big, certainly, franchise changing, if it works out, I think that the Hawks are definitely the team that edges that out. The Hawks, there's definitely going to be some massive moves made within, the offseason, within the next few months. And we talk about this all the time. These are going to be franchise defining moves and ones we haven't seen this ownership make to this point. So it's going to happen. But for me, I just have a little bit more faith in the Falcons based off of what Terry Fontenot has done the last couple of years. Defensively, maybe you're a little confused. Maybe they didn't add exactly what you wanted in the offseason. But Jimmy Lake said the other day, the new defensive coordinator, they added length and they added size on defense. And that's what he wants. And he said to him, it's just developing those players. So for me, it's the Falcons for sure.
Yeah. And Jesse Bates kind of echoed that and said, hey, we're not done. So I want to kind of piggyback off of what Jesse Bates III said and co-sign on what you guys said as well, in terms of feeling like, yes, the Falcons are the one of those two franchises that I believe when the offseason is done, we'll be saying they got it right. And I think at the end of the season as well, we'll be saying that they got it right too. And kind of what the definition of right looks like for each of those teams, those franchises, is decidedly different. I feel like the Falcons actually have a little bit of a longer leash, for lack of a better term, just in terms of the court of public opinion and fan support, right? Because at least with Raheem Morris, this is year 1, right? And so you're looking to see, okay, all of these weapons should lead you to an NFC South division title at a minimum, back to the postseason. But on the same token, if something happens, I don't know what that would be, by the way, but I still feel like if for some reason it does not happen, there would still be a higher level of confidence in that regime coming back in year 2 and making good on it, versus if the Hawks don't get this number 1 pick right, or this situation, whether they keep it, trade it, trade, or what have you. I feel like the leash for them is so much shorter, and people feel like there's a modicum of opportunity for them to get this right, but they're just not convinced. And to your point, Maria, there's a reason for that. Let's take the Falcons first. Let's even go before they picked Raheem Morris. Let's go back to what Terry Fontenot did last season when he finally had some money to work with. Let's talk about Jesse Bates III and the amazing start to the season that he had, but that he finished strong throughout the season. Let's talk about David Onyemata and the difference that he was able to make as well. So when you look at those offseason picks and you look at Matthew Bergeron just as an example of a draft pick that went well, you're going to have some confidence in what Terry Fontenot is able to do beyond just this year and this season. So you're going to say, okay, based on what you did before, I'm going to assume everything that you're doing now is going to be the right move for you. The challenge with the Hawks, right, wrong, or indifferent, is people still look at Dejounte Murray and question whether it was the right move holistically, not about DJ, but about the trade and everything you gave up. The other piece of that puzzle is this, and Jarvis, you said it best, and we know people are starting to say it. They've been thinking it, but they're starting to say it. You look at Luka Doncic and Kyrie Irving and the Dallas Mavericks shocking the Minnesota Timberwolves and stealing game 1 of the Western Conference Finals, shockingly getting past the Oklahoma City Thunder to get back to their 3rd conference final in 3 years. Whereas we're having conversations about the Hawks having not gotten there in 5 years. And it's very difficult not to look at your leadership to say, in addition to what you may think Trae can or can't do, you're looking at the leadership, because you keep saying, well, wait a minute. Yeah, that was a trade. Yeah, that was a Luka trade. But look at all of the things that the Mavericks have done to shore up things for Doncic. Look at what they did at the trade deadline. They went out and they got Daniel Gafford and PJ Washington Jr. And look what is happening. We have gone to three now trade deadlines without any movement, off seasons that have been too quiet, and people are
Or
just
salary
wanting to.
dumps. I
And
call them
right,
salary dumps. Yeah.
exactly.
Salary
But
dumps.
that's exactly what it was. That is not
Yeah.
a move that puts you in contention. And low key, the other piece there before we wrap up, or I mean, you guys might have some thoughts as well on that whole
Yeah.
piece of what the definition of right is, but I just wanted to share this before throwing it back to you about that definition for us is not just looking at Luka Doncic and thinking that's where it starts and stops, whether that trade went right or wrong. I'm also looking at the New York Knicks. Remember, that was the team, one of the teams they disposed of, and the New York Knicks minus 17 injuries that happened to their starters for the most part, and minimize the depth of their bench, they would have been taking on the Boston Celtics in the Eastern Conference Finals in all likelihood. Another team that the Hawks disposed of, Philadelphia 76ers. They have been in the conversation the last 5 years and have even had an MVP. When I look at the teams that were right there, and the Bucks, of course, got a championship. When I look at the teams that were right there as the Hawks made their last climb to a conference finals, I see where those teams are and where the Hawks aren't. That's another one of the challenges that we're facing and why we maybe have more confidence in one area and not the other.
Yeah, I think it's definitely leadership. Leadership is the issue. I have not agreed with all the moves Terry Fontenot has made. I wasn't a big fan of paying a lot of money to the safety, but hey, it ended up working out, and I'm cool with that. I'm cool with being wrong on that because
Yeah.
that gives me confidence that hey, you have a plan. As long as you have a plan, and if it doesn't work, that's cool. You had a plan, you had a vision for what was going down, and it ended up working out for you. So that's why I have more confidence in Fontenot than I do Landry Fields. Landry Fields, on the other hand, some would call him a plant. I might call him a plant. you know, he might be the guy. Hey, this is the guy we can control because that's what it looked like for me with Travis Schlenk. I knew exactly what was going down. I knew exactly where they were headed. I knew exactly what they were trying to do as an organization because you saw the moves and they start the pieces that were brought in. They fit together. Like, oh, okay, DeAndre Hunter might not have worked out, but you understood that, hey, we need a wing that can play some defense to pair him with a guy like Trae Young because the size deficiencies and obviously what the incapabilities he can do against NBA starting lineup. So it's just truly unfortunate that we're at a point now where we're questioning this dude because they have the number one overall pick because you can get good. You know, you got some assets that people might want in Dejounte Murray. And you saw the Dallas Mavericks. Everybody was looking at that Kyrie Irving and Luka's situation and how it didn't work out. Guess what happened when they saw that? I'm like, okay, we got two ball dominant guards. Let's get somebody who can play some defense. Derek Lively, they got him in the draft. It can work out. So yeah, I want to have some optimism about this team, but I just don't trust that Landry Fields is going to make the right decision because of influences above him, and I just don't think he just has the acumen to be able to do it.
One thing I was going to say, a long time ago when you were making the point about the Falcons, when it comes to expectations and what it looks like for getting it right. Well, first of all, the league doesn't give people primetime games unless they see something in those teams, right? The Falcons have not been in primetime a lot, and I've been here for now, this will be my 5th or 6th season covering the Falcons, and I have not seen many primetime games, and now I will be covering 4. And they may lose the first 2, but it doesn't matter because they are on primetime, and the league doesn't just gift these. The Carolina Panthers, for example, are in shambles right now, and they were not gifted a primetime game. It is showing you that the work that you're doing and what you've built is worth primetime television. That means that you are at least making the right pieces and putting them in place to be able to win football games. And again, I've called it the quarterback effect. It's what happens when you get a veteran quarterback. You put him on primetime TV, whether you love Kirk Cousins in primetime or not, he's there and he's putting your franchise on primetime TV. That means Terry Fontenot and company, they're doing something right.
That's a great point too. And might I make just a slight correction to what I said earlier? There are 5 bigs in this town that we believe have an opportunity this season because the Atlanta Dream also have, I think, 4 national games. So like you said, Maria, it says that the WNBA and these national networks believe that they're building something down there and they're building something good. So yeah, that's absolutely a telltale sign. And when you complete yet another game, I think that's a telltale sign, like your catcher said, that maybe you are an ace after all. We'll talk about Maximus dealing again in the deep dive. This episode of our Atlanta Sports Party is brought to you by FanDuel. It's winner take all time in the NBA and NHL, and FanDuel is giving you a shot to bring home a big win of your own. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That's $150 to bet on spreads, money lines, player props, and so much more. So think about this. We're talking about a game tonight where the Boston Celtics are taking on the Indiana Pacers. So you might want to look to see what your guy, local product Jaylen Brown, is going to do to put his team in position to possibly get back to the NBA Finals. But the intrigue doesn't stop there, because Tyrese Halliburton might have a say on that, as he wants to get the Pacers Finals. And then you look over in the NHL, and you've got two players in Connor McDavid and Jason Robertson, who are also trying to get to their first Stanley Cup final and hoist the trophy. So Edmonton Oilers and Dallas Stars are on tonight over on the NHL side. Some compelling action there as well. You want to make $150? You got spreads, money lines, player props on those guys, and so much more. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and make every playoff shot count. FanDuel is America's #1 sportsbook. All right, guys, we think about kudos, right? And oftentimes I think back to, and I'm sure you guys do as well, that we were going to be sending kudos out to the ace in Spencer Strider. We know what happened at the beginning of this season, and our thought was, wow, where are we going to go from here? What's it going to be for Max Fried? How's it going to look for Charlie Morton? How's it going to look for Chris Sale? And Ronaldo Lopez coming back into the starting pitching rotation. Well, Travis d'Arnaud said it best in the post game on Wednesday night. He said, Max Fried is an ace. Max Fried shows you everything that an ace is, everything from having command of his fastball to knowing how to get out of jams to being composed and playing within himself, that allows you to actually put yourself in position to do just what he did, which was strike out 9, throwing a 3-hitter, second complete game of the season, 6th in his career overall, and just absolutely owning the Chicago Cubs in a way that's not been done in the modern era. You're talking about a guy who's played him 6 times, beaten him 6 times. That is so very impressive. But Maria, when you look at what Max Fried has been able to do, how important was it for him to show up yet again with a performance like he did last night, especially when the Braves started this road trip with such an abysmal loss to the Cubs in Game 1?
Well, sometimes I feel like people forget a little bit. When Spencer Strider was named the ace, people forgot what Max Fried is. And I don't know how that happened, because he was the ace of this team for years, and he's been doing this. I mean, this is not new. It's just now being done on a more consistent basis. And he used only 53 pitches through the first 5 innings. I mean, the dude was cruising. He was lighting them up. It was great. And after the postgame, when he was talking to their sideline reporter, he said, it was important for me to not be perfect, which is what Max has tried to do in the past, and to be more of the aggressor. And you saw that in the 53 pitches that I just mentioned. Max looked really good, and he's been looking very good. And you mentioned it. He's 6-0 against the Cubs. It's incredibly hard to do. And now it's getting to a point where in the beginning of the year, there were those question marks with Max. It was very uncharacteristic, though. It was something that I think I mentioned on this podcast. I was never nervous about with him. It was whatever he was working through. It happens in baseball, not a big deal. Well, it's worked itself out. And so now you're getting to a point where every time Max gets the ball, you have full confidence in whatever's about to happen. And that is so crucial for this team right now, who has struggled offensively. They've had their slumps, certainly. We're seeing glimpses of a little bit of life there with the bats now. But these pitchers, the starting rotation, have been such a pleasant surprise as a group. All of them have, I mean, minus Bryce Elder, who is up and down and now down at this point. But the rest of them have been a pleasant surprise for the Braves, and much needed in a time where the offense, which is typically what we're talking about, was historic last year, is not doing what we think and know they can do. You need good pitching, and Max certainly leads all of that right now.
And I think Maria makes a great point, Jarvis, because once again, Max Fried is like, hello, I'm still here. I'm still an ace. I'm still a guy who's been in the top of the running for a Cy Young Award. And this is that kind of the second go round for him, because remember, everybody was all Michael Soroka. And then we know, of course, he had the unfortunate injuries that took him down. But Max Fried stepped up big, a Game 6 World Series winner. And here comes Spencer Strider. And like Maria said, all of a sudden Max is on the back burner again, but Max just keeps chugging away and showing you how magnificent he can be. And like I said, to take a word from our guy, Grant McCauley, from our Braves postcast, he is Maximus just all day.
Yeah, I think, well, of course, the whole Spencer Strider thing. That's the microwave society that we live in, right? And I'm part of it too. I'm guilty because you got somebody throwing gas like he was coming like 99 miles per hour. Did he got
It's good.
the whole wild thing? He got the number 99 on, and all that
Right.
stuff.
It
It's so cool to watch, right? It's easy to get on board with that. But I think for me, I'm into contract max,
Yeah.
contract. This is a contract here. Like he's trying to get paid, get some big time money. He got some big time dollars on the line. We got only 9 complete games in entirety of Major League Baseball, and this dude has 2 of them. This is like, it's unreal. It's like I'm watching a unicorn when I see a pitcher on the mound in the 8th inning, the starting pitcher, right? And everybody's like, "Oh yeah, he's gonna go to the 9th." I was like, "This is." I'm not used to this, right? Because we've been so trained and it's been ingrained in our mind that hey, analytics say da 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 and all this stuff in it. But I love that Brian Snicker kind of goes with the flow and this stuff. So yeah, I love to see it. And you got Chris Sale doing what he's doing. This is really cool, y'all. Reynaldo Lopez, this is really cool. I love what these guys bring to the table. Just got to get these bats on. But yeah, I think that ultimately, my ideal picture of how this season plays out with Max Fried is that hey, they get a World Series, and then the little bite that's coming at the end of the year where he kind of walks off into the sunset and and go where and get that big boy contract. Hopefully have a ring with him, from in 2024. So yeah, that's my thoughts and my vision for him. But yeah, it's really really cool to see because, like Maria said, the dude only pitched 11 innings in 3 games and 3 appearances to start the year. So that's not what we expect from him. So yeah, it's good. It's him doing what he's doing right now.
Yeah, also good to see at least a couple of the bats kind of come alive. And it was one of those things where, like I said, to start the series, not so good. But to end the series, or the middle of the series, of course, we got the rubber match. But for that second game in the 7th inning, just to see what the Braves were able to do, particularly Marcel Ozuna homering to left center, and then Matt Olson homering. I think that was so important because, again, these are the bats that you want to see. Like Marcel Ozuna, that's fine. He was kind of what the Braves needed to keep them afloat, right? At the beginning of the season. Now he's back on top of the National League as far as home runs with 15, I think it is. But with Matt Olson, we really did kind of wonder, okay, when is that bat going to wake up? So yeah, Maria, to see Matt Olson and Marcel Ozuna both homer, because it'd been a couple games with Ozuna, it was just good to see overall because, again, we're looking for not just, it'd be great if the whole of the order was able to get back on track, but there are pieces in this order that if they get back on track in particular, maybe others can follow suit.
Kind of crazy that we saw 8 runs by a Braves team for the first time since April, the middle of April. It's what, May 23rd? Is that not insane? We were talking about last year, right? It was like video game numbers. And so, let's continue the Hawks comparisons here, right? When the Hawks made the Eastern Conference Finals and then they can't get anywhere close, your expectations are set abnormally high when that happens. Same thing with the Braves, right? And this is essentially the same lineup with a couple of tinkering here and there. So you expect this lineup that did historic things and put up video game numbers last year to do similar things. So when they're not scoring 8 runs a game or every couple of games, people are thinking, oh gosh, this is the end of the world. So we know now at this point, it's probably not going to happen for this offense to put up the numbers that they did last year. I'm okay with that because still they're showing signs of life. And yesterday was certainly proof of that against the Cubs. Seeing Matt Olson homer and do what we know he can do is always a good thing. And Marcel Ozuna getting those very patient at bats. He worked like I don't even know how much the pitch count was, but a million pitch counts, basically a million pitches to him when he was able to homer. That's important. He's being patient at the plate and actually paying dividends at being patient at the plate. He has been the one to keep them afloat, which Who knows? I would have never said that at the beginning of the year, and y'all wouldn't have either. So it's really exciting, right? I will admit that wholeheartedly that I did not think Marcel Ozuna would be the one to keep them afloat in this lineup. But it's good because even when you go into the clubhouse and you talk to them about it, hitting is contagious in baseball a lot of the times. And once you start getting a couple guys going, I think this thing's going to break wide open. And it's summertime. Summertime, usually teams heat up. You start to look at this point of the year. Right. Yeah. And you start to look at this point of the year and say, what do I have? This pretty much is going to indicate where we're going. And there are signs of good things for the Braves, which is nice.
Yeah. And they talked about that post game as well, feeling more comfortable, hitting being contagious, and also seeing what they can do, reminding themselves of what they can do helps them to stop pressing so much, because it did feel like at times in this stretch that they've been pressing a little more than what we are accustomed to seeing from them. Now, when we come back, we got some more kudos to give out, but this time we're going up to Flowery Branch to do it in Around the Metro. Locked On Sports Today is a free 24/7 sports streaming channel programmed for you every day to bring you the biggest stories without all that noise. Locked On Sports Today brings you can't miss analysis, opinions, and also news, streaming 24/7 on YouTube or the free Amazon Fire TV channels app, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. All right, now we're going to take it up to Flowery Branch, like we said, to give some more kudos. And it's not surprising because Arthur Blank has definitely been one of those owners who has stood on his word in terms of supporting diversity and inclusion. And now he's showing once again that he has been foremost and one of the authorities and supporters of evolving and diversifying, not just on the sidelines, not just in the front office, but also in the ownership box. Rosalind Brewer, Dominique Dawes, Will Packer, and Rashawn Williams were all announced as the addition of limited partners to the organization's ownership group following approval back at the league meetings in Nashville. So they include 2 females, and all 4 are people of color. Rosalind Brewer, an executive with Walmart and Walgreens. Dominique Dawes, of course, the Olympic gold medalist. Will Packer, award-winning film and TV producer, and Rashawn Williams, venture capitalist. And I really like seeing that because, again, that's Arthur Blank standing on his word and being consistent with who he's been through the duration of his time, not just with the Falcons, but as the owner of Atlanta United as well, Maria. So you love to see this coming out of Flowery Branch.
Oh, as soon as I saw Dominique Dawes, I was like, let's freaking go. I love Dominique. And not just, I'm just singling her out. Right.
Yeah. Like, yeah, I think we all have like a little love, yeah, and nostalgia for Dominique Dawes.
No, seriously. And it's an Olympic year. So nice little shout out to the Olympics that will be on 11 Alive. But no, I thought it was really cool to see. And it's cool that obviously they're expanding their ownership, and you look at the resumes. I mean, you just named a couple of things that each of these 4 individuals do, but like, my goodness, they were so successful, and they are entrepreneurs in the community. They have a long-standing history of either working with athletics or venture capital companies, like all these things, which are very important to run an NFL franchise. And so the list goes on and how impressive they are. So I just think this is another step and a good step forward for not just the Falcons, but the NFL, because this can obviously lead to more things in the NFL happening just like this. And more teams do not have this. And so I think it's really cool that the Falcons are kind of leading the footprint and leading the way in this. And Arthur Blank has done a good job of doing that.
And I love the statements that they put out, right? Like, I think 2 out of 4 of them were talking about how this is a great investment for them. I was like, yes, this is what I'm talking about. You're talking about generational wealth, like maybe be able to get to the point where, hey, they're able to purchase their own team in the near future, because we understand what Will Packer brings to the table, putting a lot of good imagery of African Americans in the movie industry, right? So he makes sure he's very conscious of that. So to see those type of people, being able to get these opportunities to invest their hard-earned money and potentially grow it, maybe through 2 or 3 times, like that is just cool stuff from a novice, investor, as I once am and trying to get back into. But yeah, I think it's just a great thing to see. People get those opportunities, and Arthur Blank I'm not too surprised that he's a big part of this. And on a Jarvis note, I gotta say this. Dominique Dawes, she was probably one of the first Olympians to make me feel funny, as a teenager, So
Oh, we went
to see
there.
her still, doing her thing, still being Dominique, still,
She's the best.
hey, Dominique, hey, I would love to, run across you in the present.
And find out more about
congratulations. You know what I
That's
mean?
what's happening.
So congratulations to her.
And not get myself in trouble. You know what I'm saying? I ain't trying to do that.
And not get yourself in trouble. Exactly. But yeah, I think that group of four is amazing as well, because I have friends, colleagues, fellow alumni from Xavier University in Louisiana who are longtime employees of Walgreens, and they are known for being one of the foremost in retail pharmacy that actually stands behind diversity and inclusion. So it's exciting to see someone who was a part of that in Rosalind Brewer, who's now bringing that to the table with the Falcons. And then, like you said, you look at Dominique Dawes, she knows the importance of diversity and inclusion being first, and so many things that she had to see in being the first African-American to medal as she did back in her Olympic days. So I think that also gives her just a different mindset, if you will. And then, like you said, with Will Packer, he is someone who is from an HBCU. So you think about that background and that perspective of going to Florida A&M and kind of understanding the importance of, hey, how can we get more individuals from HBCUs, whether that is in a coaching program, like some of and the Falcons, by the way, have been leaders in that space too. But whether it's on the sidelines, on the football field, to give more of these guys some opportunities to try out, or whether that's in the front office, Will Packer, as an HBCU grad, can speak to how important that is because of the things that he's done, like the multi-million-dollar edifice that he's been able to put up in Tallahassee. And then I think too, it's cool for Rashawn Williams. I'm sure probably the coolest for him because he's an alum of Morehouse. He grew up in Atlanta. So how exciting is it for him to be able to be a part of this and making sure that he is, at least in some way, shape, or form, a member of that ownership team that got this Falcons team and franchise back to its winning ways. Like, I cannot imagine being born and raised here, going to school here, and the team that you cheered for, now you're like an owner, man. Like, yeah. And speaking of, before we wrap up, got to talk about that owner, because he's that guy, and the Sports Business Journal was the group that acknowledged what he's been able to do. We know we could talk on and on about so many of the kudos that we can give to Arthur Blank, but of course, Sports Business Journal gave him a Lifetime Achievement Award in New York City Wednesday. And I think one of the most amazing things that maybe we don't kind of like say often enough, but he's the pulse of sports in this city. He's the pulse, and we're not just talking Falcons, we're not just talking United, we're talking about all of the work that he's done to be able to get that international facility in Fayetteville. We're talking about all the work, and Maria, you know it because you were out there, and some of our girlfriends like Kelly Price and Allison Mastrangelo, when girls flag football was first introduced. I was
about to say flag football, yeah.
Like, he's one of the foremost authorities who said, let's bring it and let's support it. And he did that before it became a thing to do. And now, of course, it's becoming, or if not already, a sanctioned sport here in the state of Georgia. But
he helped bring it to Georgia. Yeah,
exactly. It's the little things that maybe people don't think about. And finally, the Sports Business Symposium, which is geared towards minorities and people of color and women. And he's also one of the sponsors for that too. So anyway, just wanted to give him kudos for not just being the Falcons owner, being the United's owner, but all of the other things that he's been able to do to make this a sports city. Yeah, Atlanta Sports Party said this is a sports city. We appreciate you stopping by. The Locked On Sports Atlanta YouTube channel is now streaming 24/7. It's all things Atlanta sports 24/7. And remember to like and subscribe to our YouTube channel. We're also free and available wherever you download your podcasts. We'll see you soon.